Hello and welcome to math, where today we're going to learn about standard form for linear equations and horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, so standard form is ax plus by equals c. So x and y mean our x and y values. A and b are both coefficients of x and y, and c is a constant that's by itself. Okay, so I have an equation here. Oh, and a, b, and c must be integers, and ideally you want a, the number that's leading off this thing, we want that to be a positive whole number ideally. Okay, so we have this right here. We have graph the line 6x minus 3y equals negative 6. So like 6 here, that would be my A, right? That'd be A. Negative 3 would be my B. And then this negative 6 would be my C, right? Okay, but we're plotting this using the intercepts. So using the intercepts, what do we know about intercepts? We already learned about x and y intercepts. And x and y intercepts, if you have your x-intercept, think about your x-intercept. This is the x-axis, right? So an x-intercept would cross this x-axis somewhere, right? If I have a point on that x-intercept, what is my y value? Well, it didn't move up or down from the origin, right? It just moved to the right from the origin. So my y value is 0. So when you're looking for your x-intercept, you want to plug in 0 for y. So let's figure out what that is. 6x minus 3, and instead of y, I'm going to plug in 0 equals negative 6. So this is the best thing about standard form. It makes it really easy to graph lines using your intercepts, okay? It doesn't tell you the slope like slope-intercept form, but it's really easy to graph it by using your intercepts because the negative 3 times 0, that would just cancel out. That gives me 0, right? So now I'm just left with 6x equals 6, or sorry, 6x equals negative 6. So then to get x by itself, I would divide by 6 from both sides. Negative 6 divided by 6 equals negative 1. So my x-intercept is negative 1. So I can plot that on my graph here. On my x, I'm going to have a dot right here at negative 1, and that is my first point. So now let's do our y-intercept. So we already learned about y-intercepts. Remember, y-intercepts cross the y, right? So if I have a point on my y-axis, what is my x value there? Well, my x value there, it didn't move left or right from the origin, so my x value there is 0, right? So when I solve for the y-intercept, I want to plug 0 in for x. So if I'm solving this one here, I would do 6 times 0 minus 3y equals negative 6. 6 times 0 cancels out. They get equals 0. So then I'm just left with negative 3y equals negative 6. So then all I have to do is divide by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. Y would equal 2. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 would be 2. So my y-intercept is 2. So that my y, I would put a dot right there. And then I can connect my points and make my line. My line would look something like that, right? And I can add arrows to the end because it goes on forever and ever and ever in both directions. Another thing, x-intercept, you can always write that as an ordered pair too, right? So like this would be negative 1, comma, 0, right? My y-intercept would be 0, comma, 2, right? So remember, you can always write it as ordered pair as well, right? But what standard form is really, really good at is finding the x and y intercepts because it's super easy because it just gets rid of that other variable right away. And all you're doing is dividing by the coefficient that's in front of you, the variable you want to solve for the x-intercept. Okay? So that's an intro to standard form. Sometimes you'll get equations with in standard form, and they want you to write it in slope-intercept form because they might say, like, what's the slope, right? Well, one way you could do it is you could find the x and y intercept, graph it, and then do your rise over run, right? Another way you could do it is change it, and this is what we did last class. So we solve for y, and so we can figure out what our slope is, right? So if I'm going to solve this for y, I want to get this y by itself. I want to get rid of this 2x because that doesn't have a y. So I'm going to divide, or minus 2x, to get rid of this 2x on this side and do the same thing over here. So that's going to leave me with 6y on the left side. And on the right side, that's going to leave me with negative 2x minus 6. You might be wondering why I put the x value first. That's just because it matches our slope-intercept form, right? Our x value goes first and then the y-intercept at the end. This is going to become our y-intercept after we're done solving it, right? So we want that at the end. My x value goes first. So I can't combine these two because this has an x and this doesn't. They're not like terms. So I just put that negative 2x first, and then this minus 6, I just put at the end. Okay? All right, so my next step here, I want to get y by itself. I don't want to know what 6 y's are. I want to know what 1 y is. So I'm going to divide by 6 to get rid of those 6's, because 6 divided by 6 will leave me with 1 y. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this side over here. So what's negative 2 divided by 6? Well, negative 2 divided by 6 will give me a decimal. So I want to keep that as a fraction. But I can simplify it. Negative 2 over 6 would simplify to negative 1/3. So my slope is negative 1/3. And then the slope is always attached with the x in slope-intercept form. Negative 6 divided by 6 is negative 1. And then there's my equation in slope-intercept form right there. That's my answer. Okay? All right, last one here for standard form. It says, write an equation in standard form that has a y-intercept of 4 and a slope of 1/2. Okay, so standard form doesn't tell us the slope. So we can't just write it right away in standard form. So what we have to do here is we have to write it in slope-intercept form. So y equals 1/2 x, that's a half, that's a 2. And then my y-intercept is 4, so plus 4. So I need to convert this into standard form. So standard form, remember, my x and y's are on the same side, and my constant's on the side by itself. So I need to move over this 1/2 x. So how can I move that over? Well, I could do minus 1/2 x to both sides, right? That's going to cancel this out over here and leave me with just 4 on my right side, which is what I want. I just want a number by itself. Over here, I'm going to put my x term first, because remember, it's ax plus by, right? So this, I have negative 1/2 x plus y equals 4. All right, so think about this. We said earlier that standard form, they have to be integers. Negative 1/2 is not an integer. That's a fraction. Integers are whole numbers. So how can I get rid of this negative 1/2? Well, negative 1/2, I can multiply. I can multiply this whole thing by negative 2, because that negative 2 would cancel out this negative and cancel out this 2, because this means 1 divided by 2, and the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So if I do negative 2 times negative 1/2, that'll give me 1, and that's an integer, and that's what I want. So negative 2 times negative 1/2 will give me 1, so that'll leave me with 1x, right? Usually in math, they don't usually write that 1, so usually they would just write x, but it really is 1x, right? Negative 2 times y would be a negative 2y. And then negative 2 times 4 would be a negative 8. And now our equation is in standard form. Now we are good. There's my standard form equation. Okay? So that's standard form and how to go from slope-intercept form to standard form, and standard form to slope-intercept, or slope-intercept form to standard form. All right, next we're going to learn about is horizontal lines. So let's say I had a horizontal line. So remember, horizontal line goes from left to right. So let's say I had a horizontal line right here. That's not perfectly straight, but you get the point. All right, straight across, right across there, right? So horizontal lines have a slope of 0. They don't go up, they don't go down, they stay flat like this line here, right? So equations of a horizontal line look like y equals a number, okay? And it's where the graph crosses the y-axis. So think about this. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. If I plug in all the information I know, let's plug that in for the slope-intercept form. If I plug in all the information I know, what's my slope? Well, my slope is 0, right? The slope is always the coefficient of x, so it'd be 0x, plus my y-intercept. What's my y-intercept? Well, my y-intercept is right here. What is that at? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's at 4, so it'd be plus 4. Okay? So think about this. 0x, that means 0 times x. Well, what's 0 times anything? 0 times anything is 0, right? So this kind of just goes away, and my equation just becomes y equals 4. So when they were talking about this right here, y equals a number, that is what they mean. Whenever you see y equals just one solo number, it makes a horizontal line. It has a slope of 0, and it has a horizontal line that just goes through this point on the y-axis. All right, so let's do vertical lines. Vertical lines means up and down, right? So it's going to go straight up and down like that. Let's draw it randomly over here. That blue line there is a vertical line, straight up and down, right? Vertical lines have a slope that is undefined. Undefined. It's an undefined slope. So undefined slopes are totally different, right? They don't have a slope. There's literally no slope there. It's undefined. It's straight up and down. Okay? So when you have an undefined slope or a vertical line, the equation is the only exception to the rule. Every other equation you can write as y equals, undefined is x equals. Because look at this line. It's never going to cross that y-axis, right? It's never going to have a y-intercept. So I can't write it in slope-intercept form. All right? So the graph crosses the x-axis, but it never crosses the y-axis. So what would my equation here be? Well, it crosses my x-axis here at 2, right? So my equation would just be x equals 2. So if you ever see an equation that just has x equals a number, just like this, x equals a number, that means it's a slope that is undefined and it's a vertical line going through this point. All right, this says graph the equation that equals y equals -4. Okay, so y equals -4, we just learned that makes a horizontal line. It's going to cross through the y at -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to cross the y at -4, and it's going to be a slope of 0. If I have an equation of x equals -2, right? I'm graphing this one. That means it's not going to go through the y. It's going to go through the x. It's going to cross the x-axis at -2 and make an undefined line, a vertical line. Okay? Okay, so that's standard form and horizontal and vertical lines. If you ever have a question, please ask a teacher, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.